Welcome back to On the Move with Victor Shi. This is Victor Shi. It is Wednesday, April 19th, 2023. And today we're going to do a deep dive into Ron DeSantis because what he's doing and what he's going down is a road that we shouldn't want any of our political leaders to go down. And that is toward a road of fascism. Just to give you a few examples, he's banned abortion at just 6 weeks. He's passed Don't Say Gay bills. He's restricted First Amendment rights of bloggers by requiring anyone, including social media posters, to register and report their income. He's allowed Floridians to carry concealed weapons without a permit. All of these things and more are terrifying, but we must know what's happening and elect better people into office. And someone who is doing that and someone who is such a good representative down in Florida is Anna Eskamani, who is a rising star in the party and who has done so much to shine a light on what's happening in Florida. I know Representative Eskamani should be joining me momentarily. She tells me that she will be joining from a committee room in the back room of a committee room. So that should be really exciting. So she'll be with us any moment. But in the meantime, I just want to focus on what Ron DeSantis is doing because yesterday I talked about how, the state is suffering from natural disasters right now. There's really bad floodings. And one of the things that Ron DeSantis did during that time was he went on a book tour in Ohio and not launch his presidential campaign, but was exploring a presidential campaign. And in that same night, he signed this 6-week abortion ban, which we'll get into with our guest today because it's really draconian. And I think that everyone should pay attention because look at Ron DeSantis. This is someone who is the governor of Florida. He's might be running for president. And if he gets elected, these are the type of things that he would do. So I think this is more than just a Florida issue. This is an issue that's going to really impact all of us if we happen to go down that road. But we'll talk about that with our guest today. But just some news that I want to get into before then. We've been seeing a lot of talk about gun reform. And this morning, President Biden made a very strong call to ban assault weapons. And just to kind of give you all a little bit of context, last time that he called for this assault weapons ban, he basically, or Republicans basically said that it was just another liberal talking point and that President Biden was being too political. I really hope that every single Republican now is asked, first of all, why they don't support an assault weapons ban and why they won't pass it. Because for anyone who's out there, let me know if you have any ideas, but I can't think of a single good reason, unless you're in the military or unless you need it for war, that you should have a military assault weapons in your, closet or in your possession. It's absurd on every level. And I think right now we have to make sure that we don't allow these guns to fall into the right hands. And banning assault weapons is one of those things that should just be common sense. You look at countries with common sense gun reform, they all have a assault weapons ban, and it has worked. That's the beauty of the assault weapons ban. It has worked, and we are one of those countries that still has not caught up to our peers. And I think it's past time that we do so. And so this morning, this call from President Biden to ban the assault weapons ban, I think, is a much needed call. But again, the buck stops with Congress. Whatever Congress decides to do, that's what it ultimately matters. And I think that's why we're seeing on full display right now this Republican Congress really just not do anything that will protect our lives. And you see this all across the country, state legislatures, local municipalities. Those are the areas where you're seeing not great progress on gun violence. And they're actually trying to roll back our rights. And you're seeing this in Florida, just like I mentioned, they allow you to carry guns without any permit. It's just insane on so many levels. Yesterday, there was also some good news regarding President Biden signing this historic executive order that would basically improve childcare and expand caregiving for families. It's a really remarkable executive order that I wish got more attention in the media. He did this signing yesterday afternoon. He directly called out Kevin McCarthy, by the way, for his going on Wall Street and basically not calling out rich people to pay their fair share. But when President Biden signed this bill, I think it was a really remarkable kind of instance of this president really not waiting for Congress to act. Right? We have this Republican-controlled Congress, and President Biden is still making really remarkable improvements. And just to give you a little bit of facts about this executive order, it would make childcare and long-term care more accessible and affordable for families, including military families. This is, by the way, comes at the same time where yesterday Republicans signed a bill that would make it easier for children to work at lower ages. It's just such a contrast between both parties, but it would make childcare and long-term care more accessible and affordable for families, including military families. It would improve access to home care for veterans. parents. It would boost job quality for early educators. It would enhance job quality for long-term care workers, support family caregivers, advance domestic workers' rights, ease the construction of early childhood facilities for tribes, and engage affected communities to really make the delivery and design of the federal care assistance and programs work better for families. And these are the things that will really matter in so many families' lives. I mean, you think about what the past administration did to basically hurt families and try to take away healthcare and try to take away opportunities. But this is an administration that from the get-go has really tried to expand opportunity for families, make it easier for working class families. And I think, millions of people are going to feel the impact of this executive order. And at least for me, it's really, I think a good step in the right direction. So that was a bit of good news that I hope all of us can really pay attention to. And just remember, just like I said, I mean, this is a Republican Party at the same time that's trying to make it harder or easier for young people to work at younger ages. I mean, they're literally exploiting child labor laws, and it's just this is what we're up against, this choice. And I've said this before, where 2024 is not going to be a referendum on a political party. It's going to be a choice that we all have to make. And it's a choice between literally a party that cares about you and your family and you and your family's life and safety, and a party that simply doesn't. And I think that's going to be what ends up kind of what we all have in front of us. And this happens not just on the federal level, not just in Washington, D.C., but all across the country, especially in a state like Florida, where Representative Eskamani, I know, is going to talk about just the absurd laws that we're seeing in Florida right now, what it's like for Democrats to push back against a governor like Ron DeSantis, and how we can actually maybe win against someone like Ron DeSantis in 2024. Who could win? Those are the questions that I have and that we'll get into later in today. So I see that maybe Representative Eskamani is here. I'm not sure if she is able to join. There we go. Hi there. How are you?
Hey, I'm okay. How are you doing?
So I hear that you're joining us from a back room in a committee room.
I am. Yes, we're actually in our State Affairs Committee meeting right now. The meeting packet is 750 pages long.
Oh my gosh.
And it includes, a major anti-voter bill that just passed that we fought hard against, but unfortunately it's being pushed through. We have DeSantis trying to take over a local utility on today's agenda. The Reedy Creek bill just passed as well, with, of course, Democrats voting no. So it's been a very busy morning for us here.
Oh my gosh. Well, I know you have limited time, so I want to get right into it. And I want to ask you about one of the latest things we saw in Florida last week, which is this latest 6-week abortion ban. And he did this at 11 p.m. at night, thinking no one would pay attention. But it really seems like people are paying attention. So I'm wondering if you can explain to us kind of how draconian this bill is and what people you talk to are telling you about what they think about this bill.
Well, thank you for uplifting this extreme 6-week abortion ban. This is a policy that, as you noted, the governor signed at 11 o'clock at night on a Thursday to a invite-only event with no press. It was so orchestrated that he had to ask people to clap for him when he signed this disastrous bill into law. And I'm here to remind everyone that abortion bans are incredibly I
think we might be running into some technical glitches
here in Florida. Polling tells us that Floridians support a right to privacy and the ability to make their own personal medical decisions. This ban is so extreme that you don't even know you're pregnant at 6 weeks. An abortion at 6 weeks creates an event where people do not even realize they're pregnant. So though it's a 6-week abortion ban, I would also just see it as a complete abortion ban, because people cannot access this medical private decision with the policies in place. And the bill also allocates $25 million to anti-abortion crisis pregnancy centers. So it's not even just the abortion ban. It's terrible in more ways than one.
And you, I think, had a great bill, a great name for this bill, which is the Forced Pregnancy Act. And I'm wondering, how do the Republicans in Florida look at this bill? Do they look at it as kind of what you just described, or what are people there thinking about this? I don't know if you could hear the question. Oh, I think we might have gone on mute. There might be some connection issues. Representative Eskamani, are you able to hear me? I think there might be some connection issues. This is the joys of live stream, everyone. I know it's probably a little bit of spotty connection from the back room of a committee room, but once we get Representative Eskamani back, we will bring her right back in. But I was just asking him, and she talked about this one, abortion bill. He did this at 11 p.m. I didn't even know that it was close to press, and it was so orchestrated that people basically had to clap. I mean, it's just, this is a governor who is so. Oh, there we go. Hi, can you hear me?
I do. Sorry, I lost you. I switched Wi-Fi networks too, so hopefully that helps.
No worries. So I was just wondering. I mean, you had a great kind of renaming of this bill, which is the Forced Pregnancy Act, and I'm wondering how do Republicans in Florida see this bill? Because I think there's such a divide between what Democrats think of DeSantis and what Republicans are actually seeing and hearing. But do Republicans see DeSantis as draconian, and are they kind of tired of seeing this from him?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, so, as Democrats, we filed more than 50 amendments to try to stop this abortion ban from happening. Yeah. And of course, each amendment failed on a party line vote. And as you noted, one of my amendments renamed the bill to what it is, the Forced Pregnancy Act, because that's what it does. And I will say that this final vote on the abortion ban, it was not partisan. In fact, it was bipartisan opposition. At least 7 Republicans voted no, with several walking, so they didn't have to vote. They left the floor not to vote. So I do think that even among Republicans, it's clear that this is an unpopular proposal, and the voters are reacting the same way. Now, again, the challenge is voters need to know what happened, which again is why the governor signed this in such a sketch way. In contrast, last year when he signed the 15-week abortion ban into law, he did that at a public event at a local church, hundreds of people. I mean, it was all planned out, huge public attention. So you see that contrast, right? Yeah. So I do think that this is one of those issues where we see Republicans come out as everyday voters saying, okay, he's gone too far. And I've actually already seen that, especially among Republican women. And even just on social media with Republicans saying, I voted for DeSantis, but this is not something I can support. This feels very theocratic. It just feels like we're going too far.
And I have a question about, DeSantis, because, it seems like, I mentioned at the top of this show, just all of the things that DeSantis is doing, or not all of it, but at least some of the things that DeSantis are doing to the state of Florida. Yeah, it's a long rap list, but where do you think he's going with all of this? Because it's terrifying to me, and it doesn't seem like he's stopping or listening to anyone.
Right. I mean, he is basically trying to out-Trump Trump. That is his entire goal. That is his entire vision. And honestly, I don't think that's possible. I mean, I just don't think you can match that level of absurdity and chaos, right? I mean, this is the guy that has been impeached twice, indicted, and facilitated the insurrection on January 6th on the Capitol. So you trying to out-Trump Trump in this race to the bottom, A, is not going to be likely, but B, it impacts all of us. I just got an email in my inbox with a subject line of homeowners insurance. Like, that is the most common issue that's coming to my inbox from constituents, is the rising cost of housing and home insurance here in Florida. And the governor has done nothing to address these issues. In fact, he has given away more perks to insurance companies than any other industry at this point. And so, again, he's failing as a governor in Florida, but he's also flailing as a presidential candidate, where you see members of Florida's congressional delegation endorsing Trump. I mean, it's just mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing right now.
Yeah. And I know you have limited time, but I want to ask you one last question, which is, against this backdrop, I think it's so important that you're in the Florida state legislature and these down ballot races. But can you talk to us a little bit about, I think of a state like Tennessee, where you have these rules that make it so hard for Democrats to govern. Can you give us a sense of whether or not it's similar in Florida, and how you and your colleagues are approaching and trying to make things work despite what Republicans are trying to do?
That's such a great question. This year, actually, Florida Republicans added to our House rules expulsion proceedings. So we just got that added to our House rules. House Democrats unanimously voted against those new rules for not just that reason, but many other reasons as well. And, candidly, I think if they had the opportunity to expel members, they would. I mean, we have been navigating a pretty toxic environment. We have Republicans who refer to members of the LGBTQ plus community as being demons and imps and mutants. We have Republicans that are lying about what Democrats say or what Democrats stand for, and trying to monopolize off those lies. We have Republicans that are just straight up calling us pedophiles, calling us stupid. I mean, it's just unreal, the lack of decorum on the right. And yet we're expected to, maintain the polite collegial environment. So it's definitely been a very challenging space. I always encourage I tell this to myself, and I also encourage my peers to lead with as much grit and grace as possible, because we have to be in this long term. And part of that is thinking long term. And we are inspired by our Tennessee 3. We're inspired by our colleagues across the country in these state legislatures. And I'm hopeful that it brings more attention to state legislatures, Victor, because as you know, everyone pays attention to DC and the White House, which is understandable. My congressman is Maxwell Alejandro Frost, so I'm super blessed to have a rock star in Congress. But as you know, the state ledge is where all these things happen. And so from abortion rights to LGBTQ plus equality, we have 3 anti-LGBTQ plus bills on deck today on the House floor. And of course, just issues of like corporate accountability, social safety nets, all of that is grounded in state government. So I'm hopeful too that the intention we're seeing in Nebraska with Senator Megan Hunt,
I think we may have lost Representative Eskamani. Sorry about all these technical difficulties. But for those of you who couldn't hear, at least from what I could gather, I mean, we were talking about just how challenging it is for Representative Eskamani and also for Florida Democrats in this political environment against the backdrop of Republicans. And, we have to, like she said, pay attention to these down ballot races. That's where these things are really going to matter. And I'm going to do what I can on this show to shine the light on that. I know Representative Eskamani is going to shine a light on that and as she approaches her work, but it's on all of us to really pay attention to these down ballot races, and also then to vote for candidates, to do our research before we head to the ballot box in 2024, really making sure we know who our candidates are, not just on the top of the ticket, but also way down at the bottom of the ticket, and knowing, things like propositions and referendums. I mean, those are the things that we are really going to have to pay attention to heading into 2024. And I think Representative Eskamani is really a shining star, and hopefully we can get her back, if not today, definitely later down the line, because she is someone who I think is going to be the future of this party. She is a political talent, a political force, and we're all going to, I know, really keep an eye on her. At least I will keep an eye on her. She is doing great work in Florida and really showing us what grace and grit looks like, just like she said. So if she comes back, she comes back. But if not, just one more thing, which is this Dominion lawsuit. So yesterday, and I'll have much more thoughts on this tomorrow with our guest Stephanie Rule, but Dominion basically settled with Fox. They settled for $787.5 million, which isn't nothing for any news organization. But just to give you a little bit of context, Fox News last year made a gross income about $14 billion. That's only about 5% of their total gross income. So it's something, but it's also nothing. But it's kind of, it will throw a dent in what Fox is trying to do. But it is also just, I wish they would have let this play out in court. But I guess, for them, the calculation was how much they would be willing to risk and whether or not it would be more expensive. But someone noted this to me yesterday, which is that the $787.5 million is 10 times more than the bottom line of Dominion. So this is a win for Dominion. This is also, I think, a win for Fox, but it's also, I think, a loss for democracy, because we want Fox to pay the price. I mean, $1.6 billion would have been a lot. And remember, there would have been other charges as well, because there could be more damages. Basically, whatever happened in that courtroom could have been more than that $1.6 billion. But I'm a little bit torn. I mean, on one hand, I know that this is a lot for Fox. And I know that also Dominion isn't stopping here. They said yesterday they have lawsuits against Newsmax, OAN, Rudy Giuliani, Sidney Powell. You have Smartmatic. You have other lawsuits too. So this isn't going to be the end in terms of lawsuits for the right wing. And it's I think, a rather successful defamation lawsuit in the sense that we got to see some of what Fox did to lie to us. But I just wish we could have, let this process play out in court. And I hope Smartmatic, the next one, which is even more than the $1.6 billion, will not settle, and they will really bring this forward and let this process play out in court. But we'll be paying attention to that. Tomorrow I'll have on Stephanie Ruhle, like I said, at 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. Eastern time, right here on youtube.com/Politicon. Hopefully we don't run into as many technical challenges as we did today, but tomorrow she will join us. And as you know, she hosts the 11th hour on MSNBC. She'll be a wonderful guest to talk about this, what's happening right here, and also what's happening in Congress and what's happening with banks, because she is the chief economic correspondent for NBC as well. So don't miss that. On Friday, we'll be joined by Kimberly Atkins-Storr of #Sisters-in-Law, and who's also a political analyst for MSNBC. We'll talk about all the legal news of the week, so don't miss that. Remember, 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. Eastern time, right here on youtube.com/Politicon. Don't miss it. Be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Have a great rest of your Wednesday, and I will see you all tomorrow.